In terms of the issues of concern, there are three approaches that could be taken. One is to try and, within the existing structures of the EU, ask for certain laws to be repealed. So at most basic level, we go back and say to our European partners and the European Parliament, please repeal, for example, the working time law that's infamous and mentioned in David Cameron's speech. We don't like that, can we get rid of it, or can it not apply to us, or something like that. That probably wouldn't be earth-shattering. It would be awkward, but perhaps it could be done. More difficult would be to repatriate powers, the second option. That might require treaty change. If treaty change is required, then the consent of all the member states is required. Now, at the moment, the British seem to be arguing that the Eurozone countries will need to change the treaties in order to proceed with deeper integration, at which point the British veto can be wielded and we can secure concessions then on things that we want to repatriate to Britain. The third option is just leaving the EU, walking away, and there is now a legal mechanism to do this under the treaties. Didn't used to be, but now you can give 2 years notice, and in theory you can just walk away, although there are arguments about whether you can walk away with no strings attached, because there needs to be a negotiation on how you leave. It's a bit like a divorce settlement. You can't just walk out the door and say, I'm not talking to you anymore and I'm taking the house and the kids with me. There has to be an agreement, essentially, on how you do it. Is the EU a warring family? Well, certainly it's a very long-term relationship. I mean, we've been in it for 40 years. The other member states even longer. And what that tells you is that during a long relationship, you don't get everything you want. And you will have periods of, hot and cold in the relationship. And there's give and take. And to some extent, the family analogy is quite a good one. And the UK has had a vote, has a big vote actually, because it's proportionate to our population in the council. So we don't just get one vote, we get, if you like, a large percentage of votes, and we don't get everything we want, even though we have quite a lot of votes, quite a lot of influence, but some things we do get, and that's the nature of a family to some extent, is you can't have everything you want. If the UK tried to leave the EU, the UK would have to rejoin the EU in some shape or form. It's a false choice. There is no completely outside the EU. Certainly there's no way of escaping the reach of European law. And if we tried to leave, we would have to negotiate some kind of new relationship that was still governed by a large number of European laws anyway. The obvious examples are places like Norway or Switzerland, part of Europe that are subject to European laws in a great many areas, but do not have a bargaining role and do not have a seat at the table to negotiate over European laws and how they're made.